My name is Maya Collins, and once upon a time I thought love meant safety. I believed in the small promises, the late-night phone calls that turned into mornings, the whispered plans about one day, and the way he would look at me like I was the only person in a crowded room. I never imagined the same life would teach me how to fight back. I met Alex at a friend's barbecue. He had that kind of easy smile that made everything feel lighter, like sunshine had decided to speak. He laughed at my stupid jokes, remembered the little things, the way I liked my coffee, the fact that my mother hated cilantro, and he was relentless with his attention. Within months we were inseparable. We moved in together in a tiny apartment with exposed brick and squeaky floors. We painted the living room in a brave teal that he insisted would make us feel alive. We adopted a scruffy rescue dog named Chester who decided I was his person on day one. From the outside, our relationship looked perfect. People asked when we'd get married, I would laugh and say soon, because I believed it. Alex talked about our future like it was already built, vacations, a home with a garden, maybe 2 kids if we were brave. He called me my girl, he told me I was brilliant and funny, and when I had a bad day at work he'd make me soup and listen until I felt whole again. But people are complicated. Love is complicated. And sometimes the person who says forever is also secretly hoarding choices, rewriting reality, or lying with a kind of practiced ease that becomes a slow poison. The first crack wasn't dramatic, it was a series of small omissions. He'd cancel plans with me last minute with a shrug that made me feel inconvenient. He'd forget to tell me about drinks with coworkers until the bill arrived in my name. Once, I found an unfamiliar lipstick mark on his collar. He said, "Must be from the stylist at that shoot," and I swallowed it, because I wanted to believe him. Later came the quieter things, a phone always face down on the table, a flinch when a text came in and my name wasn't on the screen, a new habit of locking his laptop when he left the room. I asked him straight, after a week of circling, heart-pounding, and little insects of doubt, "Is there someone else?" He took my hands, his eyes soft, and told me, "No. Maya, you're the only one." I wanted to believe him so hard that sometimes I closed my eyes and trusted the sound of his voice. But trust is not a magic spell, it's built on truth. And truth, in our house, started to fall away. The moment the lie revealed itself, it did so in a way that taught me how to steady myself. I came home early from work one Wednesday because I had a surprise idea. I'd planned to decorate the living room for the small anniversary we had forgotten to celebrate properly. I carried string lights and a cheap bottle of champagne, thought about how surprised he'd look, and pushed open our front door. The apartment was quiet. Alex wasn't on the couch where he usually watched late-night football. Chester was asleep in his bed. I dropped the bag and walked toward the kitchen, and froze. There were 2 coffee cups on the counter I didn't own. I didn't recognize the brand. Near them lay a small stack of printed photos, a habit he had never had. He'd printed pictures, him with a woman I didn't know, laughing close together in a way lovers do. My heart thudded so loud I thought the apartment might hear. I heard the door lock click behind me. Alex stepped in, smiling at first, then confusion as he saw the pictures in my hand. The smile fell. He moved faster than I expected, snatching the photos from me with an apology ready. "Maya, I can explain." But his eyes were slippery, and I could see he had already started to choose which truth he'd hand me. "Explain what?" I asked. I remember how small my voice sounded, like it came from very far away. He told me it was nothing, a brief, what was his phrase? A complicated friendship. He said her name was Nicole, a client, someone he'd been helping with a small startup. The photos were from a meeting, the coffee cups were from a brainstorming session. He said everything that men say when they've already decided to rewrite facts to make themselves innocent. "You're overreacting," he said, with a practiced gentleness that felt like a command. I realized then how dangerous gentleness can be when it's meant to disarm. I felt anger rush through me, not the hot, immediate kind you see in movies, but a long, steady heat that made my fingers tingle. I thought of the nights I had stayed up to comfort him, the times I had given up something because he needed to save for a trip, the thousands of tiny compromises women often sign without a lawyer. For a week, I pretended I believed him. We moved in the same orbit and I watched, cataloged, collected. I watched his phone. I learned his rhythm. He liked to charge his phone in the bedroom, after 10, and leave it on silent. He sent certain messages right after work, and certain messages when he said he was taking Chester to the park. I found one small window, one pattern in his behavior, and I kept my eyes on it like a hawk. You learn things when you are not being childish. I learned to document. I learned to keep receipts. I learned how to check a credit card statement without making it obvious. I learned how to place a small audio recorder in a potted plant and not tremble when I pressed record. Because the truth is this, if you confront a liar without proof, they'll make you the liar. So I became very careful. I forced myself to act small so he'd show his normal arrogance in front of me. I let him keep thinking I wouldn't bother to check. He was wrong. He had underestimated the kind of woman I could be when love had been weaponized against me. 3 weeks later, the proof arrived in a way that felt almost cinematic because it was so painfully ordinary. He left his laptop open, an email tab blinking on the screen. The subject line read, "Weekend plans, Nicole." My chest tightened. His email client was full of polite messages, laughter, planning brunches, but in the subject headers he'd used coded language that made the intent obvious once you saw it as a pattern. He even wrote, "Keep this between us, Maya thinks I'm too busy with work." I printed the emails. I copied the messages. I labeled them, dated them, and then sat down to breathe. I felt like I had found a map in a foreign city that would lead me back home. I remember that night as the night my world narrowed to a single decision. I could demand answers and watch him lie. I could cry and be the broken woman the story expected. Or I could do something else. This isn't a story about instant catharsis or fireworks. It's a story about the slow, methodical reclamation of a life that someone else tried to consume. I chose the latter. I started small. I moved my personal accounts away from our joint ones, set up an email address under a name he didn't know, and booked a meeting with a lawyer friend who owed me favors from college. I made backup copies of everything. I documented time, place, people. I created layers of proof that would be impossible to dismiss as misunderstandings. At the end of that first month of discovery and half-sleep, I packed up my string lights and left them in the bag. I let the teal wall stay teal for now. I needed a plan. And plans, I had learned, took patience. Revenge doesn't come in one dramatic explosion, at least not the kind I wanted. I wasn't looking to scream, throw glasses against walls, or hurl insults until the neighbors complained. No, mine had to be quiet, sharp, and unforgettable. Alex still thought he had the upper hand. That was his first mistake. He believed I would cling to him even while doubting him. He believed I would keep fighting to prove my worth as if betrayal was something a woman should work harder to overcome. The first step of my plan was invisibility. I smiled when he cracked jokes. I kissed his cheek when he left for late meetings. I played the part of the loyal girlfriend so perfectly that he never suspected my silence had become strategy. What he didn't know was that I had already built my foundation. My lawyer friend, Claire, explained that while Alex and I weren't married, our joint accounts and shared lease still gave me leverage. If I moved my money out quietly, I could secure myself without him knowing. So I did. Every paycheck, I transferred a chunk into an account only I controlled. At night, I went over the evidence I'd collected. Emails, credit card statements, even receipts from places he claimed he had never been. Nicole's name appeared more often than not. Dinner bills for 2. Hotel stays, 4 business trips. A necklace from a jewelry store I'd never been gifted from. The anger burned low and steady inside me, but I refused to let it control me. Instead, I let it sharpen me. I began setting traps. One evening, Alex mentioned a conference he had to attend over the weekend. He explained it with the practiced ease of a man who thought he'd been lying long enough to be invincible. I nodded, kissed him goodbye, and told him to have fun networking. The next day, I followed. Not in a dramatic trench coat in the rain kind of way, but casually. I drove my own car, parked 2 blocks away from the hotel, and waited. Within an hour, I saw him walking out, his hand intertwined with hers. Nicole. She was tall, brunette, with the kind of smile that belonged to someone who believed she had won. I stayed in my car, phone in hand, camera ready. I snapped the photos, Alex laughing with her, carrying her bag, leaning in too close. Proof, undeniable. It was almost funny, how cliché he looked. Like a bad movie character too arrogant to realize the audience already hated him. By the time I got home, I wasn't even shaking anymore. I was calm. Collected. Determined. I called Claire again. She suggested I consider timing, that exposing him at the right moment would matter more than confronting him in the heat of anger. Pick a moment when his guard is down, she said. And make sure the right people are watching. That gave me an idea. Alex's birthday was 2 weeks away. He loved throwing big gatherings, loved being the center of attention. Dozens of friends, co-workers, even some family members packed into our apartment, all praising him, all feeding his ego. What better stage for the truth than a room full of people who believed he was golden? I spent the next 2 weeks preparing. I smiled when he brought flowers home, cheap, guilt-driven ones. I pretended to be excited about his party. I even helped him write the guest list. Meanwhile, I crafted a slideshow presentation on my laptop, disguised as a photo montage of his life. In reality, it was a carefully curated collection of evidence, emails, texts, photos, receipts. A perfect narrative of lies unfolding in front of everyone. The day of the party arrived. Our apartment buzzed with voices and laughter. Music pulsed, glasses clinked, and Alex was in his element, grinning like a king on his throne. He pulled me close for appearances, his arm draped around me as though I were still his prized possession. If only he knew. Halfway through the night, he clinked his glass and announced, "Maya has put together something special for me, a slideshow of memories. Let's see it." I smiled sweetly, my heart steady. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind so many times that I felt almost serene. I clicked the remote. The TV screen lit up. The first few slides were innocent, pictures of us at the beach, goofy shots with Chester, moments from our first apartment. Everyone smiled, laughed, clapped. Then the tone shifted. A screenshot of an email, "Can't wait to see you this weekend, Nicole. Don't tell Maya." Confusion rippled through the room. Alex's smile faltered. Another slide, a hotel receipt, 2 guests, dated the same weekend he told me he was working late. Gasps. Whispers. Nicole's name became a storm in the air. Then came the photos I had taken outside the hotel, Alex and Nicole, hand in hand, looking every bit the couple he swore they weren't. The room fell silent except for the sound of Alex sputtering. It's not what it looks like." I cut him off. My voice was steady, clear, and louder than his excuses. "This is exactly what it looks like. 4 months, you've lied to me. To everyone here. But I wanted you to see the truth the way I did, undeniable and ugly." Nicole wasn't there, but her absence didn't save him. The damage was done. Friends stared, some shook their heads, others outright walked out. His co-workers whispered in disgust. His carefully built image shattered in less than 5 minutes. I stood tall, heart pounding but face calm. "Happy birthday, Alex," I said, before walking out of the party. Chester's leash in my hand, suitcase already packed by the door. The sound of chaos behind me, his voice trying to chase me, guests murmuring, was the sweetest music I'd ever heard. When I closed the door behind me that night, suitcase in hand and Chester's leash wrapped around my wrist, it felt like stepping into a new life. The cool night air hit my face, sharp and refreshing, as if the universe itself was rewarding me for finally letting go of dead weight. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse on the sidewalk. Instead, I smiled. For the first time in months, I felt free. I drove straight to Claire's apartment. She had insisted I could stay with her until I found my own place, and true to her word, she greeted me with a glass of wine and a warm hug. "You did it," she said. "You burned him without lifting a finger. That's power, Maya." And she was right. The next few days were filled with silence from Alex. No calls, no texts, nothing. He was too busy scrambling to patch up the mess he had made. Friends who had once idolized him now wanted nothing to do with him. Word spread fast, and his reputation, especially at work, began to crumble. Claire's fiancé worked in the same industry as Alex, and he told us everything. Alex's boss had heard about the party fiasco. A man who can't keep his personal life in order doesn't exactly inspire trust in business, the boss had apparently said. Within a week, Alex was quietly pushed out of key projects. Within a month, he was demoted. It wasn't just his career. His family, too, turned cold. His mother called me one afternoon, apologizing for the way they had doubted me. "We thought Nicole was just a friend," she whispered, embarrassed. "I can't believe what he did to you." I accepted her apology, but I didn't let it in too deep. They had chosen to believe him when I needed them most. Now, they had to sit with that choice. Meanwhile, I focused on myself. I found a small but beautiful apartment downtown, nothing fancy, but it was mine. I painted the walls a soft cream, filled it with plants, and bought a cozy reading chair I'd always wanted but Alex thought was a waste of space. Chester adjusted quickly, bounding around the new space with excitement, as if he too sensed we had escaped a prison. For the first time in years, I started exploring hobbies again. I joined a painting class, signed up for yoga, even took a weekend trip with Claire to the coast. Every little step felt like reclaiming pieces of myself Alex had chipped away over time. But revenge isn't just about leaving. It's about watching them fall. And oh, did Alex fall. One evening, as I was unpacking boxes, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. I opened it to see Alex's name signed at the bottom. "Maya, please. Can we talk? I know I messed up, but I need you. Everything's falling apart. Nicole left me. Work is a nightmare. I can't do this without you." I stared at the screen, my lips curving into the faintest smirk. Nicole left him? Perfect. I didn't reply. Not that day. Not the next. He tried again and again. Calls, texts, even emails. Each one more desperate than the last. Finally, after a week of silence, I decided to answer. Not to reconcile, but to close the chapter on my terms. We met at a quiet cafe. He looked terrible. The confident man who once strutted through life like he owned it now sat slouched in his chair, his eyes shadowed, his hands fidgeting with the coffee cup. "Maya," he said, almost whispering. "I know I don't deserve another chance, but please. I miss us. I'll do better. I'll prove it." I studied him, every word he spoke dripping with desperation. Once, I might have melted. Once, I might have believed. But not anymore. "You don't miss me, Alex," I said calmly. "You miss control. You miss having someone clean up your mess while you played house with someone else." He flinched, and I knew my words hit their mark. "I don't need you anymore," I continued. "You're a lesson I survived. That's all." I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked out. As I stepped onto the street, sunlight warmed my face. I realized then that true revenge wasn't just exposing him or watching him lose everything. It was becoming untouchable, rising so far above him that he could never reach me again. Alex faded from my life after that. The messages stopped eventually, and though I occasionally heard whispers about his downward spiral, more failed relationships, bouncing between jobs, losing his apartment, I no longer cared. His story wasn't mine to follow anymore. Mine was about rebuilding, stronger than before. And as I looked around my new apartment, Chester curled at my feet, a half-finished painting on the easel, I finally understood the sweetest part of revenge. It wasn't about destroying him. It was about finding myself. The weeks after my last meeting with Alex were like stepping into a sunrise after years of darkness. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't defined by betrayal, heartbreak, or anger. I was defined by my choices, my strength, my independence, and the life I was carefully rebuilding brick by brick. I poured myself into work, but this time not as a way to prove anything to anyone. I worked because I loved what I did. Without Alex draining my energy with lies and manipulation, I found myself excelling in ways I never thought possible. My boss noticed too. Within 3 months, I was promoted to lead a major project, something Alex always claimed he was destined for. The irony wasn't lost on me. My weekends were no longer spent waiting for a text that never came or pretending everything was fine when my world was falling apart. Instead, I painted, I hiked, I laughed with Claire, and I discovered how much joy there was in simply being alive. But the universe wasn't done surprising me. One Saturday afternoon, I was at an art supply store, debating between 2 shades of blue paint, when I heard a voice behind me. "Go with cobalt," the man said. "It's bolder. Ultramarine is too safe." I turned, slightly amused, and saw a tall man with warm brown eyes and a friendly smile. He looked casual in jeans and a flannel shirt, but there was a confidence about him that felt different from Alex's arrogance. "You sound like you know what you're talking about," I said. "I'm a graphic designer," he replied. "I spend way too much time obsessing over shades of color." His name was Ethan, and what started as a quick chat about paint turned into coffee, then a walk through the park, and eventually dinner. He was funny, kind, and genuinely interested in getting to know me. No games. No hidden agenda. At first, I was cautious. My scars from Alex ran deep, and the thought of opening my heart again felt terrifying. But Ethan never pushed. He respected my boundaries, listened when I spoke, and never made me feel like I had to prove my worth. With him, I was just Maya, not someone's girlfriend, not a woman battling betrayal, just me. Claire noticed the change immediately. "You're glowing," she teased one evening as we sipped wine. "Is it the cobalt blue or the cute guy from the art store?" I laughed, but inside, I knew she was right. Ethan wasn't the source of my happiness, but he added to it in a way that felt healthy, natural, and refreshing. Meanwhile, Alex's shadow grew smaller and smaller. Occasionally, I'd hear whispers: he'd lost another job, Nicole had married someone else, he was living with a roommate half his age just to afford rent, but those stories no longer affected me. They were background noise, reminders of a life I had walked away from. My real victory wasn't in watching him crumble. It was in watching myself rise. Months later, I stood in my apartment, now fully decorated and alive with my personality. Chester was sprawled on the rug, snoring softly, while Ethan helped me hang my latest painting on the wall. As we stepped back to admire it, Ethan slipped his hand into mine. "It's beautiful," he said. I looked at the canvas, bold strokes of cobalt blue, layered with fiery reds and golds. It wasn't perfect, but it was strong, unapologetic, and full of life. Just like me. I smiled, squeezing his hand. "Yeah," I whispered. "It really is." And in that moment, I realized something powerful. The greatest revenge wasn't the moment Alex lost everything. It was the life I built after him, a life filled with love, freedom, and peace. Because the best revenge is happiness. Betrayal hurts, but healing and rising above it is the sweetest revenge. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more powerful revenge stories, and ring the bell so you never miss the next one. Your support means the world, and together, we'll keep sharing stories of strength, justice, and ultimate payback. See you in the next video.